All right, so I'm going to have to narrate this. My nephew, new to filming, joined me on this hunt, and I never told him to check the gains. So the mics were clipping the whole time. The audio was terrible. I apologize, but I wanted to point out what we did right and also what I did wrong on this bull that I called into 40 yards, 43 yards. um, because it was a really cool encounter and it was really early in the season. It was like September 7th, so things really weren't cranked up yet. And we were in Montana, new place, never hunted before. So, first, we were going to go out hunting. We weren't going to go out hunting this evening. I was just going to a spot to go check to start for the morning. So I wanted to maybe catch some bugles off in the distance, whatever. And just get a layout of the land. I've never been there before. So when we got out of the truck, we waited, kind of got ready, um, and I let out a couple of cow calls, like right from the truck, and we heard a fairly close, like within 300-400 yards, bugle. Um, and as you can see in this video, I'm not wearing camouflage, and that plays into some of my decisions later on. So at this point, I only made cow sounds. We got an answer back from him. I considered, cow calling my whole way into him and switching to an excited cow, but I knew that this bull, he had hung out in this area because it was a meadow on the top of a mountaintop, and he was expecting cows to come in. And I don't know that it probably would have worked out if I had gone that route. But I think he was looking for the hot cow, and the only way that I can let him know that it was a hot cow was, introducing a bull at some point. So all these things were kind of going through my head. Anyway, so we head towards the bugle, only using cow sounds in the beginning. The setting, like I said, it's a mountaintop meadow, and it had a bench of trees for about 75 yards wide, the whole length of it, and then it dropped off fairly sharply into the trees to my left. The meadow was to my right, and then it hit another bench of trees and then dropped off on the right. So it was kind of like this very top of this ridge deal. Um, and I didn't know how far into the trees he was. I didn't know because if the sound was coming from ahead of us, he could have been right at the edge of the trees, and so I didn't want him to come out into the field. So we kind of went slow at first. I introduced a bull sound, just like a frustrated moan. That's what I like to call them. Um, so he would think that there was a hot cow in the group, like I said. I wanted to get a good sense of where he was at since he wasn't talking very often. Um, so we were again moving really slow, and I was waiting for him to bugle to give up his location. Plus, I wasn't sure if he was coming to meet us halfway um, until he chuckled again. And when he chuckled, then I could tell he was kind of stationary. I did a few cow calls and continued with a frustrated grunt and then started glunking. And here again, I did this to like help solidify that I had a hot cow and that I was a younger bull. Um, I was actually trying to sound smaller than him, but still maintain a certain level of like, hey, these are my cows. Um, and, and you can't hear it right here, but he chuckles again. As you can see, I knocked an arrow at this point because the last response we had seemed to be a bit closer, and I was afraid that he was coming in silent. So I was listening intently for sounds that he might be approaching, and I didn't want to get caught not being able to, draw back with an arrow on the string already. So The bull moaned right here, and so I answered him back with the same similar sound, that same frustrated grunt moan that I do. You can see as we get closer, I start calling a bit more, keeping up with some of the same philosophy that I'm a small bull with a hot cow. And like I said, this is really early in the season, like on the 7th of September. So I'm trying to paint the picture of the like young bull that happened upon some hot cows, and I wanted this guy, this bull that I was talking to have it in his head that he might be able to steal him from me. Also, if you take a look at the scenario from the get-go, um, it's like the last 45 minutes of light. I'm in an area where a bull is hanging close to an area that would be expected to have cows. Like this meadow, he would expect that cows would enter into this meadow and start feeding for the evening. So I didn't want to be super aggressive with the bull because I wanted to do what I wanted to be that same bull, like what he was doing. I was kind of like hanging out, and these cows just happened to be by me, and I wanted again him to have that idea that he could steal those cows from me. As we move in closer, um, I know I got this guy hooked. That he's gonna let me go to him, and I could call him over the last distance, like the last bit of distance. I have a really good, strong feeling in my head that we're gonna have a shot on him, and because it was the light was fading, I started kind of push forward a lot more quickly. In the beginning, you could see him kind of going slow because I wasn't sure um, of the distance, and I wasn't sure if he was going to meet us halfway. I look at my topo real quick on my Onyx, and I could tell that there's a rise between where we're at and where he's at. So I know I can be a little bit more aggressive, and I know that he has to come over this rise to come see us. Um, so again, just closing the distance very quickly. I see a group of trees up ahead of us, very like just below the edge of the rise that I was talking about, and I'm like, that's a great spot to set up and possibly rig trees, maybe call from there. I'm not sure yet, but as I'm working my way through there, I start making these decisions. So we get to the trees, and I knew I needed to start raking right away and do what my good friend Paul Medell calls a breeding sequence. Um, I get into those trees, and because I'm not wearing camo, I don't want to be seen, and I'm not 100% sure because it kind of gets a little bit breaky right there where I hear the bull coming from. So I'm not sure exactly where he's at or how close he is. So I'm like, let me stay behind the trees to do the raking part since I don't have a partner that's capable of doing that. I have my nephew, but he was on the camera. I can't expect him to run the camera and rake trees and all that stuff at the same time. So I'm like, I got to rake the trees, da 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 da, and do what I got to do, and then I got to step out. There was a little opening to my right in between the trees that would give me kind of enough cover um, and provide me a shot to where I thought the bull was going to come up from. So I start the breeding sequence, start doing the trees, and I can hear the bull starting to get a little bit closer. And when he starts advancing to sell it, I warn him. I give him a challenge bugle. I tell him, hey, step back. These are my girls. You can't have them. Because that's what a real bull would do in this situation. And because I know, I put my cow reed in my mouth that I sounded like a very immature bull. And, even though the aggression was there, the largeness of me was not in the bugle. So I knew he would think I was a beatable bull. Now, this is where I mess up. So, like I said, I wasn't wearing camo, so I was a little leery about being seen. And honestly, I misjudged how close this bull really was. My plan was to get him riled up, and once he started coming towards us, I can like kind of confirm and hear that he was getting closer. That I was going to step out from behind those trees and into that little opening that I described. So that I can make the shot. Well, just as I was about to move, I saw him coming right up straight at us. So I got trapped behind the trees, with no shot. So rookie move. Um, and I really had, at this point, I had no option because he was right there. When I first saw him, he was like 60 yards. Um, Maybe while he was walking, I probably could have got away with slipping to the side just a little bit to step into that opening, but I didn't. I kind of got frozen up by the situation, and I didn't want to bust him, but unfortunately, it only left me with one option, which was to try and coax him closer to us and a little bit to our right, so that I can get a shot off. Um, As you can see in the video, unfortunately, that never happened. He came to 43 yards and he stood up at in a beautiful silhouetted situation that doesn't really do it justice in the camera. But he sat there, he bugled at us, and as it got dark, he moved away just a little bit, went kind of like back over that little rise, and gave us the opportunity to back out. But he continued to call. He called to us in the dark, and as we walked back to the truck, I can hear him calling each time. And I didn't answer till we were about halfway back to the truck. So he would just think that he lost the opportunity and that I was able to scoop the cows and go. And hopefully that he would be there the next day. Now, he wasn't a giant bull, but my first time hunting this area on a general tag in Montana, I wasn't being picky and I would have been happy with him. Hopefully you learned something. Thanks a lot for checking it out.